Hi, hello, good morning everyone. I'm Dr. Harika Kishore. On behalf of Vista's Learning, I'm here as your biology educator. Vista's Learning, it's an online education platform which works with an ideology of providing quality education for all. Visit our website www.v-learning.in where you're going to get an access for all the recorded sessions, live videos, concept videos and also study materials. Moreover, you're going to get this lecture notes in the form of PDFs. And also get your acquaintance with all the channels available and make sure to subscribe to the channel Vista's Learning Class 11 and 12. If you find this session useful and interesting, make sure to click on the like as well as share this session with your friends. And also don't forget to click on the bell icon such that you are going to get all the upcoming video notifications. Now, saying that, let's start out today's session. We're going to discuss the last topic that is going to come under the chapter, that is environmental issues, which comes under the unit ecology, right? So let's begin. The last chapter, that is last topic which comes under this chapter, that is deforestation. As we already know, as the human population is rising and it keeps on raising, that is ever increasing, we can see. Therefore, there is an increasing demand that has been created towards the food supply, that is food production. And for that, we are depending upon the plant source as well as animal source. Whether it is a plant source or animal source, we need a land, and for that, it may be for cultivation, and it can be converted into grasslands where we can feed the animals by make them to graze on this grasslands. For that, to meet with the demands that are coming from the ever increasing population, we are converting forest areas into deforest areas. That is what we consider as deforestation. So, deforestation is the conversion of the forest lands into non-forest lands, where this happens by excessive overexploitation and cutting down of the plants, cutting down of the trees. Whether we are using it as a timber, wood or firewood, and even we are using that area by converting forest area into lands which are useful for the agriculture, which were converted into grasslands. All this are made possible where we are increasingly being the cause for this deforestation. So here, deforestation is the conversion of the forest areas into non-forested one. This is a simple definition. And why we are doing this deforestation? As we just now explained, that we already know they are more and more lands that has been converted from the forest areas into agriculture lands or grasslands. And to estimate that, according to an estimate, almost 40% of the forests has been lost in the tropics. Then coming to the tropics and temperate regions, while we are discussing about the biodiversity, we have come across with a statement that is more biodiversity is found in the case of tropic regions when compared to the temperate regions. So we can say that biodiversity is more in tropics when compared to temperate regions. So here we find it more, here we find it less. So more the biodiversity, that is more biodiversity, more habitat, that means more forestation. So more damage will be towards a tropic when compared to the temperate regions. So here 40% forests has been lost in tropics because tropics will show more biodiversity, more habitats, more suitable habitats for the growth of plants as well as animals. So here, compared to only 1%, this is the reason why there is a less percent, there is only 1% in the temperate regions when compared to the 40% that is happening to the tropic regions. because the biodiversity will be more in the tropical regions when compared to the biodiversity that is present in the temperate regions. Reason for this is we already know, but I'll give the statement again. As the temperatures which are present in the tropical regions are almost constant and it is predictable, whereas the temperature or the climatic conditions which are present in the temperate regions are very unpredictable and they are less constant. Because of this less constant and unpredictable climatic conditions, temperatures, it will not support more biodiversity, which will not support temperate regions, will not support more biodiversity. Whereas as the climatic conditions or the temperatures are constant and it is very predictable, it maintains the constant climatic conditions, it maintains the constant temperature, thereby which it supports more vegetation. As more vegetation, then more herbivores, more consumers. That means in turn more biodiversity. Therefore, as a more biodiversity, where we find in the tropic regions, more loss also happens towards the deforestation towards the tropic lands only when compared to the temperate lands. So this is the reason why it is estimated that 40% has been lost due to deforestation in tropical regions and only 1% loss takes place in temperate regions. Now, so here, the rate at which the deforestation is taking place, the rate at which the forest areas are converting into agricultural lands, if the same rate is further proceed, then what happens? The present scenario of the deforestation is particularly grim, very serious in India. The rate, the speed at which the deforestation is happening is very, very serious. So here, at the beginning of 20th century, towards the beginning, we can see forest covers about 30%. Look at here. At the beginning of 20th century, forest covers about 30% of the land of India, right? So here, at the end of the century, when we come close to the 2000s, it shrunk to decrease happens to reach to 21.54%. This is the percentage of which there is a downfall of the forest lands. And whereas the National Forest Policy that was made in the year, this is important, in the year 1988, in the year 1988, so here, towards the initial stages, that was 30%. And as the century is coming to the end, that is as it is moving towards the 2000, then the percentage has been dropped to the 21.54%. Here, according to the National Forest Policy that was made in the year 1988 of India has recommended 33%. Initially itself it is only 30%, but the recommended is 33% in the plains, whereas 67% for the hills. So these recommendations are already not to the estimations towards the starting of the century itself. Still, the percentage has dropped towards the end of the century. This will give you a picture how the rate, how fastly the deforestation has been happening in our India. That is what we consider this situation as a grim, very serious situation. The rate at which the deforestation is happening is very, very alarming now. So here, how does this deforestation occurs? The main reason is human activities that we already know. The number of the human activities contributes to it. And what are that human activities that are, we can consider them as a major reasons. One of the major reason is the conversion of the forest to agriculture land. Just now we said that we need to meet the demand that is coming from the ever increasing human population. The ever increasing human population definitely creates a demand for the food, shelter. So to meet that demand, we are converting the forest areas into agriculture land as to feed the growing human population. Using this forests to convert into agriculture lands, thereby we can form either plant farming can be done or also animal farming. Animal farming is nothing but animal husbandry, where these lands can also be used to graze the animals. So towards the end of the point, here the forest lands are going to convert into agriculture lands. Now trees are axed for its timber, wood, even for firewood. Cattle ranching. Cattle ranching is nothing but the farming. Farming where that is specified for raising livestock. Livestock like cattle, horses, goats, sheep, to get its products in the form of meat, eggs, even wool. So all this cattle ranching, for this we need a land that has to be dedicated for the raising of grasses, and these grasses are useful to feed, are useful to graze by the cattle, and for several other purposes. We are cutting down the trees to get the wood, to get the timber for constructions, and to get the firewood for household activities. And we need to mention about the type of cultivation, and that is called as splash and burn agriculture. This splash and burn agriculture commonly employed by established this type of the cultivation we can see more in the east northern states of the India and also in the Bangladesh, like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipal, Mizoram, Tripura. These are all the states where we can see this zoom cultivation. Zoom cultivation is nothing but splash and burn agriculture. What is this splash and burn agriculture? The name itself suggests that here the farmers will select a forest area where they will cut down all the trees. Now the cut down trees or the plant debris left or the remains of the plants, they will burn to ashes. Completely they will burn such that it will remain with the ashes, as this ashes coming from the nutritious elements that are coming from the plant sources, we can use this ash as a fertilizers. Using these fertilizers, they will now use that land for farming. That means raising crops, that means growing crops, and also these grasslands can be further useful to raise the cattle also. Once this has been done, that means the cultivation has been done, where the top layer, nutritious layer, fertile layer, which do we find on the topmost layer of the soil, it is going to diminish, it is going to decrease. Then that is a point where the farmers will leave this area and shift to another segment of the forest. Usually, they will give enough time for the affected area, that means the area where the cultivation has been happened and all the nutrients has been already taken up, used or absorbed by the plants. They will give enough time for this land for the further recovery. And after recovery, they will come back and recycle the form. That means that they will again repeat the same form of cultivation, that is called as splash and burn cultivation. But what is actually now happening is, because of the ever increasing demand which is coming from the ever increasing population of the humans, there is no enough time that has been given for its recovery. After and after agriculture or after and after civilization in the same land, making that land to completely deplete out of its nutrients, and slowly at the extreme conditions this land is going to convert into deserts. That is what we call it as a desertification. Here, splash and burn agriculture, commonly called as zoom cultivation, this is important. Where do we find this type of cultivation to be happen? Towards the northeastern states of India as well as Bangladesh, has also contributed to the deforestation, because the area first selected, this selected area will be burnt, where the trees are first cut down and all the plant remains will be burnt into ashes. That is what cutting down of the trees, where we are converting the forest areas into non-forest area, that is nothing but your deforestation. So here in splash and ash agriculture, just now we discussed, here is a theory part. The farmers cut down the trees. Cut down the trees itself, making that land, forest area, into non-forest area, deforestation. Then what they'll do? They burn the plant remains, whatever the wood that is coming, that will be utilized as a timber or the wood or firewood. And whatever the leftover debris of the plants, what we call it as a plants remain, will be burnt to the ashes. The ash is used as a fertilizer, and the land is then used for farming, plant farming, for growing the plants, for growing the crops, and also for cattle grazing. So this cattle, that is the animal husbandry, where the cattle starts feeding on the grass which are growing on the grasslands. Where is this grassland is coming from? It is in converted forest area. Now, as we already said that, now the first batch of the cultivation is done. Now what they will do with that area? The area is left. They will leave that area for several years. It may be like 5 years to 20 years. So as to allow its recovery. This part is very, very important. See, if we are giving in enough time for the recovery, that is what we already dealt in the case of proper utilization of the natural resources. Forest is a natural resources. We are utilizing to meet the demands that are coming from the population. That is okay. That is all fine. Until and unless we are giving enough time for the used land to get its recovery done, it is okay. But what is actually happening now? The farmers then move to, they first the batch of the cultivation is done, and they will leave this area, let it recover on its own. That is, the natural recovery process will take place, and it will retain all the nutrients that it already lost, because a small vegetation will start as the years are passing down. We can see the small vegetation, and also this producers will form the herbivores, will find the herbivores, thereby increasing slowly the biodiversity, and thereby it is gain its last glory there. Now, the farmers then move to the other areas, then repeat the process. Like that, the different segments, once they have done with the first segment, the farmers will shift to the second segment. Now, once the second segment is done, they will shift to the third segment. Then they'll come back to the first segment. Meanwhile, the first segment gets its enough time to get its recovery done. But situation here, in earlier days, in the good olden days, the zoom cultivation was where it is happening at the higher rates. Prevalence, enough time gap. This is the thing. This is the main change that has been happened from the ancient period to the modern period. So here what is happening, enough time gap was given so that the land recovered from the effect of cultivation. Now the effect of the cultivation, it got enough time to get out of it and to get its depleted nutrients back, to recover and to get the nutrients what it has lost. With increasing population, now that enough time is not given to that particular area for its recovery. And repeated cultivation, this recovery phase, this is the important thing. This recovery phase is done away with. It is a phrase which means to put end. We are not giving enough time. Done away with, resulting in deforestation, as we are not giving enough time for its recovery. Moreover, the human activities are also speeding up, the accelerating the rate of deforestation. It finally, from the stage of deforestation, it slowly leads to de-desertification. Now, deforestation leads to desertification. One of the major effects is enhanced. This is important. See, as we while we are discussing about the greenhouse effects, global warming, we had mentioned about the carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases are, if they are present in the atmosphere, they will heat up the surface of the earth. That is what we consider as a heating up the surface of the earth, that is global warming. Temperatures are rising due to increased concentration of this greenhouse gases. That is, greenhouse effect is caused by the increased concentration of the greenhouse gases. In that, one of the main important gas, as we already listed down, the greenhouse gases like methane, carbon dioxide, ozone, right, nitrous oxide. Here, as we already know, if the trees are present, if the plants are present, they will absorb this carbon dioxide and maintain the concentration of the atmospheric carbon dioxide. If there are no plants available, if there are no trees enough available to absorb the concentration of the carbon dioxide, then the concentration of the carbon dioxide keeps on increasing. So here is enhanced, increased carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, because trees that could hold a lot of carbon in their biomass are lost due to deforestation. Right? Now, which leads to greenhouse effect, which leads to global warming. Now, deforestation also causes, along with the increased concentration of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the deforestation also leads to some of the very severe, serious effects. And what are they? Cause of biodiversity. Cause of biodiversity, like variation of the species at its genetic level, at its species level, at its ecological level. See, if the land is enriched with the plants and trees, there are so many insects which will feed on the plant seeds or the fruits, right? And even the pollinators will come for the nectar, and insects, to eat that insects, to get the to use this as a food, the next trophic level, that means small insect eating birds, from there large insect eating, large bird eating birds, from there to consumers, and finally there is an enriched diversity, biodiversity. If the plants are not there, if the forest areas are being converted, it is going to show its great huge loss in terms of biodiversity. So here, due to habitat destruction, see, habitat is a suitable place which provides its natural resources for the growth of the like what we say, species, any species to that matter. For example, say fish. Fish, where we can say it finds its suitable habitat in the water. If you give the land to live for the fish, it cannot, because it will not support the growth of the fish. Therefore, suitable habitat is needed to support the growth of each and every individual species on its own requirements. Each and every species has its own suitable area, and that is what we call it as a habitat. If the plants are not there, if the forest is not there, then it is going to show its effect towards the loss of the biodiversity that is happening due to destruction of the habitat, suitable places which will provide where it will get the food, where it will get the shelter. That is not there. It is going to be affected due to deforestation. And also, it disturbs hydrologic cycle. What do you mean by hydrologic cycle? In simple word, hydro, that means water cycle. What do you mean by this water cycle? See, this is the sun. Earth, water surface, and this is atmosphere. Due to the sunlight, the heat which is coming, water starts evaporates and escapes into atmosphere. Similarly, the plants which are growing on the earth, on the land, water loss also takes place from the surface of the leaves, particularly from the stomata, and that form of water loss we already know, that is transpiration. So through transpiration, plants also lost water. Through evaporation, water will escape from the water bodies into atmosphere. Now here, condensation happens where we do find formation of clouds. Once the condensed water vapor precipitates it through rainfall, due to gravity, it reaches back to the Earth's surface. Now what is happening here? From the Earth's surface, through evaporation process, the water reaches to the atmosphere. Once it reaches atmosphere, the condensed water vapor precipitates out and reaches back to the Earth's surface. This cycling exchange of the water from the land to the atmosphere, from the atmosphere to the Earth, this is called as water cycle, and this is going to be affected because of the deforestation, causes soil erosion. What do you mean by soil erosion? In the last session itself we discussed soil erosion is nothing but a displacement of the top most fertile layers of the soil. We do find the fertility, nutrition rich soil on the topmost layer of the soil. Due to water flow, floods, or due to heavy rainfall, or due to wind, or due to ice, there are so many factors which leads to the removal of the soil particles on the topmost layer, thereby decreasing the fertility of the soil, that we call it as soil erosion, and may lead to, as the soil erosion is happening slowly and slowly at the extreme conditions, we find the formation of the deserts, and that is what we call it as desertification. So here, this is a piece of the land where it has been fragmented and grazing, cultivation happens. As the cultivation happens, the growing plants will utilize all the nutrients which are present, and this will lead to the patches where we can't find nutrition. And if this patches extends and meet with one another, the complete land slowly it is going to deplete its nutritional layers, and slowly it is not eligible, that we can say that slowly we can't find any vegetation that is growing on this type of the lands, and this land slowly converts into desert, and that process is called as desertification. But the initiation is by the cutting down of the trees, thereby it is causing the disturbance towards the water cycle, that we call it as a hydrologic cycles, and also severe effects like destruction of the habitats, which leads to loss of biodiversity, right? All this contributes a lot, and finally at the extreme conditions, it is going to cause desertification, formation of the deserts. Now, okay, we have discussed about desertification and reasons for the we have discussed about deforestation as well as desertification, and also we discussed about the reasons why this deforestation is happening at an alarming rates. Now what should we do? What is the measure to stop this cutting down of the trees? Reforestation. It is a process of restoring. We have converted the forest lands into non-forest lands. Now that is our responsibility to restoring a forest that once existed but was removed by our human activities, right? At some point of time in the past. Previously it is a forest land. Now again we are converting it into forest land. That is what we call it as a restoring forest. Deforestation may occur naturally in a deforested area. If you give enough time for the recovery, that is what we just discussed in the case of cultivation, zoom cultivation. If enough time is given to an affected land, by its own, it starts recovering itself, but it will take long time. For that, to assess, however, we can speed up. We can increase the speed of this reforestation of the affected lands by planting trees with due consideration towards biodiversity. We need to reduce the loss that is happening towards the biodiversity that earlier existed in that area. Because all this biodiversity was once habitated in that particular area, because of the deforestation, we lost the biodiversity which has already existed. Now we are restoring, we are welcoming back, that's it. Now, so this is very, very important point to be noted. Case study of people's participation in conservation of forests. We realized once the damage has been happened and it is keep on happening, we realized, and most of the community people started realizing and started taking measures towards the conservation of our bioresources. So here, people's participation has a very long history in India towards the conservation of the forests. In the year 1731, this is very, very important, the king of Jodhpur in Rajasthan asked one of his ministers to arrange the wood for the construction of the new palace. And the minister and his assistants started to in search of the new land and also in search of the wood. They find this wood by cutting down the forest, which has been got a strict opposition from the people of the community which are living nearby the village. So here what happens, the minister and workers and his workers went to the forest because they need wood. For that wood, they went to the forest near a village inhabited, and that village was inhabited by the community, and that community is called as Bishnoi's community, where they oppose this cutting down of the trees, because this Bishnoi's community is known for its harmonious coexistence, peaceful coexistence with the nature. They live in the synchronization, they maintain the equilibrium because they believed that the equilibrium has to exist between the human existence and also the environment existence. That is, a nature has to be protected. We have to conserve our natural resources. Now, the effort to cut down the trees by the kings was prevented by the Bishnois. How they have prevented? By showing an exemplary courage, by worth mentioning, that is Amrita Devi. A Bishnois woman, Amrita Devi, showed exemplary courage by hugging a tree and daring king's man to cut her first before cutting the tree. But very sadly, the tree, because she believed that the tree mattered much more to her than her own life. That was a very brave, courage decision, and they followed. Also, it was sadly ended where the king's man did not heed, listen, pay attention towards her pleas, request, and cut down the trees along with the Amrita Devi. Not only Amrita Devi, her 3 daughters as well as hundreds of other Bishnu community people is followed her and thus lost their lives in saving trees. This movement, now here in history, do we find a commitment of this magnitude when human beings sacrifices their own life for the cause of environmental protection? The government of India has recently instituted, this is very, very important to note it, Amrita Devi Bishnu Wildlife Protection Award in remembrance and also to the honor of Amrita Devi, Amrita Devi Vishnu Wildlife Protection Award for individuals or communities from the rural areas that have been shown extraordinary courage and dedication in protecting wildlife. Another movement also happened in the history. We may heard of Chipko Movement of Garhwal area, which is present in Himalayas. Here also, this happens in 1974. Local women showed enormous bravery, courage in protecting the trees from the acts of contractors by hugging them. The same thing happens. People all over the world have acclaimed the Chipko movement. This is important. One is Amrita Devi, Vaishno movement, and other one is Chipko movement. These two are very, very important to remember. Realizing the significance of the participation by local communities, the Government of India in the year 1980 have introduced the concept of, here is a concept where give and take policy. They have made a concept of joint forest management where this local women, community people will protect the forest. In return, they are free to use the forest products. What do you mean by forest products? Forest products are nothing but plant products, animal products. Like they are free to take use of fruits, vegetables, gums, rubber, medicines which are coming from the medicinally valued plants that are grown on that particular forest. The only thing is they will protect the forest and get the products out of the forest. This is nothing but a joint forest management. So here, joint forest management, JFM, so as to work closely with the local community for protecting and managing forest. They will protect as well as manage, conserve this forest. In return for their services to the forest, the communities get benefits of various forest products like fruits, gum, rubber, medicines, etc. So here is, they are protecting and they are using the products which are coming from the forest. And thus the forest can be conserved in a sustainable long-term manner because they are protecting them, and after protecting they can easily access whatever the products that are coming from that particular forest area. So this is your joint forest management. Yeah, this is all about very simple to understand deforestation, desertification, and how the movements strict opposition that have come against the deforestation and loss of the biodiversity. So with this, we have finished the chapter that is environmental issues. In the coming up session, let's come up with a new chapter that is molecular basis of inheritance. Until then, keep learning with We Learning. Thank you.